Hello again. Welcome back. As usual, this is Becca going by Nightcat or Nightcat's Meow most places online. And I'm good to see all y'all coder cats and coder kittens showing back up again every Tuesday. Well, we talk about Linden's scripting language. I would like to go ahead and again apologize for the trouble getting a video together last week. I just have not been getting down with the time management enough to get these videos recorded in advance, and so when I wound up with login trouble, I wasn't able to get that concluded, and I sent y'all what I could, wherein we started looking at setting up a monitor of script memory usage. So this time we're going to pick up where that left off. For those that just skimmed that because it wasn't a complete video, we will start talking about script memory again. I was told that the problem I had of getting dropped and then not being able to get back in is what somebody else had experienced who was working with this. But now I come back in logging back in the same spot as the device, and nothing was happening. Which, since I hadn't done anything with it, suggests that it was probably not the script itself, but just something more coincidental or something going on with Linden Labs. But I will go ahead and monitor the memory usage. We're going to let this go for a couple of cycles just so I can do that. And after, because I recently reset it, so, and there it went, it just checked again. So we're going to go ahead and let that run a couple more times and then check back in. All right, welcome back. I've gone ahead and sat here watching a couple of YouTube videos on my virtual phone. Kind of a fun thing to be able to do, I have to admit. Everything you want under one window. Letting this run for, in response to the suggestions that the script itself is what kicked me out last time, I can point out the fact that I have been here since, let's see, 1635 for a check on the program. Now 1700. So that's a good, almost half an hour that I've been sitting here watching this. Please don't mind the Kabuki Cow reference. When I made this sim originally, it was a cyberpunk environment, and Kabuki Cows is sort of a bad joke. It's part of the comic relief. It's Kabuki Cow's discount sushi and all-night pharmacy. Hence why, for a sure excuse off of work, trust in Kabuki Cow. Please pay that no mind. I just forgot to turn that off when I was making this video. And forgot that my arcade is within the range of that system. But now to get into the thrust of what I was setting up here is we see the first time it checks uses 7,320 bytes. And that is just bytes. Nowadays, we usually deal in occasionally kilobytes, but usually megabytes and gigabytes and terabytes. So that is not a lot of information. That is a lot of memory that it's using. And LSL. Shoot. Remembering what the command is I used in here. Script profiler. And this is the command I use to get those numbers I'm looking at. We'll go over those numbers a little bit more here. It only has a flag to turn it on or off, but then is used with profile script memory. Actually, it's easier just to go back into here and show it. The script profiler used at most that much get SP max memory. That's what I was looking for. Bytes of memory during the function. So there's if debug script profile, where profile script memory. So with these in place, basically I'm going through and profile none just tells it to stop profiling. It doesn't actually replace any of the information. So what we have here, I checked to see that I've been registered, used about 7 kilobytes. Here it found me again. So the numbers are staying fairly consistent. It does actually start to climb a little bit. It gets up to 7570. Then it drops and stabilizes at 7218. Here it took 7502. So occasionally it's taking a little bit more memory to process the search, but it's never really getting particularly high. The only thing that will continue to climb in terms of memory capacity is the actual list that stores the two lists, visit and count, that keep track of the logs of a person coming through. And if those run over, it's not going to start dropping you off the sim or lagging you. It's going to give you something called a stack heap collision, which right there. And here's the description of stack heap collision. Stack heap has collided with the bytecode or the heap. Translation, the script ran out of memory. So if you wind up with too much going on in there, too much that it's recording, you're going to get a stack heap collision. You're not going to get one script logging down the entire sim. So I'd like to think that this has sufficiently disproved the theory that this script is excessively laggy. It's using just barely 7 kilobytes, whereas a script under mono is actually granted I believe it's 64 megabytes. I'm sorry, actually all scripts in LSL mono scripts, which we're using now, 64 kilobytes. Okay, so you're using about 7 kilobytes out of 64 that are available. That's not really using up all that much. This should not be a particularly laggy script unless you're using a whole lot of copies of it or you're doing something else with it. So that should hopefully solve that particular question from a couple weeks ago right there. If that's not enough of an answer for you, Lilith, go ahead and leave me another comment on here. I preferably with more information. I did get your comment from last week about having the same error of it kicking you out of a sim. But as I said, I've been sitting here for, at this point, over half an hour without any trouble from this. And the memory usage I'm getting from the script does not look particularly aggressive. So I highly doubt that there's any specific problem with this script that is causing that issue. The other thing that was addressed, however, was that it wouldn't show the name of a person that wasn't in the sim at the time. And I had gone back for you, Calistar. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Calistar, and looked that up. It is a limitation of key to name that I'd never personally bumped into before because I hadn't tried to use it in quite this way. So that was an oversight on my part. That was a legitimate mistake on my part not to account for that. But I did go ahead and look up a method by which you should be able to read the name of the avatar from the key, even if they are not currently in the same sim. And that method was through request agent data. Just had to check my notes real quick to remember what that was. Again, I thank you all for coming up with things that are causing me to delve into commands and to functions that I hadn't dealt with before. You're actually causing me to learn new things as part of teaching them to you, and I actually really appreciate that. You see right there, just ran a check again and used only 7,218 bytes. So that's actually pretty good. So you request the data about agent ID, which is a key. When data is available, the data server event will be raised. So we're going to set that up in here. Touch start. So instead of just running key to name, which is right here, we're going to go ahead and when there's only one or two items that are going to be called, that will be easy. The trick is you need to be able to call multiple of them. So, because the data server will be triggered separately from continuing through the for loop, this is going to get a little bit more complicated. We're going to create a new function, records, and yeah, we're going to pull that out of here. We're pulling that out of there because we're going to reference that from another place. So the reason we're pulling all of this up into a separate function there we go. The reason we're pulling all this up into a separate function is because we will need to have it go and automatically cycle through, have each new iteration triggered by the completion of the data server event, which basically means that when we call the data server, it goes through, gathers the information it needs, then references it to come back and run records again. That's a way to keep them synchronized so that you don't wind up with information coming in the wrong order. So, integer check record equals 0. So instead of a for loop, Oh, did I? Yes, I did. I goofed a little bit there. What did I do? I copied out of the scanner, not the record tester. That's an oops. I have never claimed your favorite coder kitty is perfect. Far from it. I make little mistakes and I leave them in for you all to learn from. Alright, this is what we needed in there to start with. Alright, now that I've copied over the correct part of the original code, we can start making the important changes to it. The way it was written before, 2 weeks ago, is that it would go through a for list, checking each item until it had gone through the entire length of list length visit. So, what we're going to do this time is we're still going to check to see if it's gone through the entire list, but we're going to do it a little differently. We're going to comment out all of those so that they're not getting in the way. So when records is called, it will still check if debug is on and activate script profiling if it is. It will then say checking records. We still want to check the get list length visit, but we're also going to be keeping an integer check record or check rec. So if check rec is equal to or greater than get list length visit, then owner say check complete, and if debug memory. So we've now restored the functioning for the end of the check. Now we need to rewrite the check itself to go through and actually run the data server. The way that is going to work is we're going to make sure that when records is first called, that we set check rec to 0. Else, so it checks if check rec was equal to or greater than get list length visit, in which case it clears all of this out. Otherwise, this time we're going to use the code we're taking from request agent data. So we'll copy that in here. Just for reference, I'll leave that commented. I did not successfully copy. That is silly of me. Request agent data, key ID, integer data, and the data you're looking for is data name. So copy data name. And the key, we'll just use the same method we used down here. List to string visit I, but we'll be changing I since we're no longer using the I as the command there. We're using check rec. So now what we have is it goes through and it does request agent data. It pulls that number record out of the list for visitors and runs a data server event to get that. So we go back inside the main code. I went ahead and copied this initially out of the wiki page for request agent data. The data server has two arguments, key query ID and string data. That is actually not a thing you have to create separately. That's actually just stored in there. I had to remember that. Of course, we do have to create the key for this, so I'm referring back a couple times because I've used data server before, but I don't use it a lot. So name query. So I'm just showing y'all how to. Name query equals. All right. What I had almost forgotten to do is you establish a key. You can name it whatever you like, but name query actually explains what it is very well. You say the name query equals request agent data, exactly as I described. When that goes through, it will trigger the data server. So if name query is exactly equal to query ID, the query ID is generated automatically by triggering the data server call. What this just double checks is that it's looking at the same query you were creating, that it's not getting it mixed up with some other data server call. In most cases, that can't really happen, but those rare times that it can, you want to be protected from it. So we're now going to copy that entire string I'd made before for your feedback. Owner say registering visitor number. We no longer need to use I. Since we made check rec or check record a global variable, it is accessible to the entire script. So we can just plug check rec +1. Again, this is because, remember, a computer list starts at entry 0, but human beings think of lists as starting at entry number 1. This just makes it friendlier to a human being looking at it. Is, and instead of this long key to name thing, we will plug in data, because that is the data being produced by the data server, is the individual's name, and has been logged links to list to string count I times. Again, we've been replacing all of those I's with check, rec. And it claims something is wrong. What was wrong is you can't have the greater than after the equal, it has to be before. And this new error is that when I was pasting some things in place, I forgot to get rid of a semicolon that was not part of this new line. There we go. That is now fully set up there. So we give that a couple of minutes to go ahead and ID me again, and I will be able to test the function. We can look at it right now. Checking records, check complete. It used slightly more memory to do it this way because we're using a couple of different paths of if-thens, and we actually have a data serve function built in there, so that would account for the slightly higher memory usage. The actual checks it will run, we didn't change how those run, so those are not going to get any more memory intensive than they already were. And we're not even using half of the basic memory allotment for a script to utilize at any moment. Because what that does actually just tells you the maximum amount that was used at its peak. Basically, it's a lot of times the script uses less, but at its peak it used that much. So I'm going to put this on pause again because it makes it much, much, much easier to edit later. And go ahead and let this rack up a couple more checks. So I will see you all again in a couple minutes. Welcome back again. That little pause there. All right. So, yeah. As you see with the new system, it does in fact properly tag my name still. And that should be able to tag somebody's name even if they're not in Sim. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to test that because I can't click it from outside of Sim when I'm still in Sim, and I don't have somebody conveniently able to show up and be a guinea pig for me very easily, unfortunately. But that would be the right way to go ahead and reconfigure that. And again, all of this time not being dropped out of the Sim. So hopefully that proves that it was coincidental, not this particular script lagging out a Sim. So that will conclude this week. Next week, I will go into things about tracking how much memory is being used by the stored list of visitors and ways you may be able to adjust this to get a better rough estimate of how much time an individual is spending within a given region. And after that, I could probably set up email alerts for things or organize like your top 5 visitors, a couple other things like that that might be of use to y'all tracking traffic in a sim. But that is a matter for future Becca and future you. Present you all have made it through another week of my videos. Thank you very much. A special shout out again to Kizzy for the work she's doing on my Discord. It is greatly appreciated, and she's also one of the ones that has been keeping up the encouragement for me in the comment section. I want all of y'all to know how much that helps. A small channel like this, just having those little reminders that people are actually watching and benefiting from this makes all the difference in the world. I had actually put this entire series on the shelf once, but then started getting people asking about it and paying attention to it again, and so I brought it back. And you all that are with me now have really been reminding me that yes, this is useful to people, that yes, this is important, and that means the world to me to know that. So thank you, all of you, and see you all next week. So, as usual, these videos are made somewhere on the weekend or Mondays and set to go live, then set up to go live on Tuesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. So that's when y'all can check for new videos. Um, you can always post requests for new tutorials or specific questions on the Discord and in the comment section. Um, I may not always respond to them directly, but I do notice them and I do try to incorporate them into the videos because if one person has a question, odds are somebody else will too. So, but I guess that's it for right now. So, I guess that's good day, good luck, happy coding, and as usual, meow.